had exploded in violent unrest. Black attitudes were changing.
I say this, sure we like to be nonviolent, but we up here in Los Angeles area, we're not turning that other cheek.
Everywhere King went, he heard young radicals speaking a new language, the language of a recently assassinated black leader, Malcolm X.
We're nonviolent with people who are nonviolent with us. But we are not nonviolent with anyone who is violent with us.
Confronted with the growing popularity of violent retaliation, King's defense of nonviolence became increasingly aggressive.
We cannot win a violent campaign in this country. If I were not morally inclined to nonviolence, I would be pragmatically inclined. But after all, we have neither the techniques nor the instruments of violence, and I say to be throwing bricks at men with machine guns is not only being violent, it's being foolish.
Throughout 1966, 67, early 68, King is always on the defensive, always having to prove his present-day value to people. What should surprise us the most is how little cumulative credit King at that time is accorded for all of the tremendous successes that he had helped to register.
Beleaguered but unbowed, King decided he would take the offensive. In 1967, in this church, he would make public a subject which brought together all his deepest concerns. The speech was called Beyond Vietnam, and it challenged America's war in Southeast Asia.
The world now demands a maturity of America that we may not be able to achieve. It demands that we admit that we have been wrong from the beginning of our adventure in Vietnam, that we have been detrimental to the life of the Vietnamese people. The situation is one in which we must be ready to turn sharply from our present ways.
The speech had disastrous consequences for King. The hero of desegregation and civil rights, the dreamer of the March on Washington, was attacked by both friends and enemies. He was denounced as a traitor, a confused preacher dabbling in affairs beyond his comprehension.
All the civil rights leaders, for various reasons, refuse or can't take a stand or have to go along with the administration, that's their business. But I must say tonight that I know that justice is indivisible. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
He could write off J. Edgar Hoover as right-wing and even racist, though he never said that. But when so-called liberals began to attack him because of his position on the war in Vietnam, I think all of this began to really burden him down.
The attacks hurt him deeply, and many of his friends sensed a growing frustration as he fought to make sure that nonviolence was not eclipsed by America's preoccupation with the war. The leader who could once galvanize whole cities into action now felt drained and isolated.
He said to me, I am just so worn out. I am mentally and physically tired. He said, I have to find some solace somewhere. And he was completely alone.
King was about to reach the end of his journey. In April 1968, he was invited to this church in Memphis to support striking sanitation workers.